Good day, my friends, wherever you may be in the world. Alan Clements here. Part 10 of an 11-part series titled Deadman Walking, Freedom Never Dies, Pray Not. 11 emerging life lessons in facing death. Point 10 today. A defiant march of innovation. Refusing fear. Embodying freedom. Embodying the virtues that we designate as the attributes of our beauty, our strength, our power, our enchantment, our sense of the holy, the numismatic, the existential, the transcendent, the factors of enlightenment, whatever they may be to you, your unique Dhamma, one's own innovative Dharma, one's own original expression of yoga in dynamic action with interior consciousness in form and outside through the sense doors in time and space, events, proximity, in flesh, in sound, in color, in radiance, in energy, in frequency, in context. World Dharma. I hope you're well. This weekend, I don't want to use the word final, but these will be two of the last talks I'll be giving for a while. I'm not sure when I'll resume. No doubt I will, God willing. There's a lot going on for all of us, for me personally. I'm at the final stages of the new breathtaking women in my life, the angels in hospice. Remarkable group of profound saints, really. A whole coterie of doctors and nurses being granted this remarkable privilege here in America, here in Hawaii. My body, my choice. To live and dream and to transition on my terms. I've been granted that right, that privilege by the state of Hawaii, by the United States of America to euthanize. It's a very difficult word to share. And it's been my choice to get right up close to, for me, the most epic decision of my life and have that choice available to me. Soon I'll be going to Honolulu to pick up these various substances. I don't intend to use them. I want to say anytime soon, but without deep due psychological, spiritual, Dhammic due diligence in that week, in that day, in that hour. Coupled with that, just on a personal level, before I drop into this defiant march of innovation, refusing fear, I guess it's all very interwoven. I've never felt better. Strangely, oddly, curiously, more vital, more dynamic, more creative, more content, more in adventure, healthier, nuanced, subtle, respectful to myself and to others. It's the pinnacle of a life right now for me, and I feel it. And I feel that I'm investing in the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual qualities of my own unique expression of Dhamma or Dharma artistry. And yes, the world is in meltdown. Misinformation, distortion, and totalitarianism clearly is on the march. And there is so many other challenging factors, emotionally, psychologically, physically, in our interpersonal relationships with our friends and our families, our health, our vitality, our incomes, our security. There's so many reasons to despair, and right there, for me, choice. That super empowered factor of mind and heart and consciousness that must be rooted in courage and discernment, but it has the power to look right into the eyes of anything that's complex or evil and refuse to participate in the fear of projecting more into that event of complexity than really meets the heart eye, and you basically rise to the occasion and say, no, I refuse you, fear. I refuse to participate in your propaganda. Learning the language of the lie. Death is a lie. I'm beginning to see that more and more. Yes, we'll all pass away, conventionally speaking. Yes, yes, yes. Relative truth. But ultimately, rebirthing, a continuum. The propaganda of old age, disease, and death. I refuse to participate in your drama. I will do what I need to do for myself in the moment with choice. Choice. The artistry of applied choice today. The Defiant March of Innovation. I don't think I've ever talked about this topic. But the dilemma and the challenge of being a human in the world of concepts, in form, in time, and events, and all the ways in which conditioning and ideation and perception demand of us to participate in the alphabet of civilization, as aberrant and as insane as it is most of the time. But then there's this other consideration called reality, ultimate truths, lawfulness, the architecture, the formations of consciousness in form and context, the Dhamma, the preciousness of the Dharma, and the distinction between ideation and proliferation and perception and mental formation dancing upon the event, a person, the artistry of the perception. That's real. But then there's that challenge, right? To see it on the phenomenological level, the parami-based perception of an event. And therein lies this event called the Bodhisattva vow, hang with me, which I'm fascinated by, where there's an individual, I'm not saying there's a desire to be a Buddha, I desire to meet a Buddha, but there's this desire in an individual who wants to form and to shape and to create as vocation. I'm sure there must be hundreds of paramis, states of excellence, but the 10 primary states, the spectrum of transformational awakening that when they say, theoretically, when illuminated to its highest degrees of excellence, therein lies the function of a Buddha, the embodiment of a Buddha. And for me, this bodhisattvic vow for a mortal who wants to live the artist's life with regard to Dhamma, I want to learn, this is my point, I want to learn more and more how to embody the rightness of the parami beyond the interpretation of the event as good or bad, right or wrong, profitable or denigrating, all of which are considerations to consider. But I want to make a decision to embody the parami, the state of excellence that evolves my Dhamma. Isn't that the Dhamma life versus the life of avoiding suffering, the acquisition of profit and privilege and security, which are all natural. But in the beginning of the day, in the middle of the day, at the end of the day, what we have is we've strengthened our emotional, spiritual Dhamma faculties. And it's the spiritual war that I'm in personally. At times it's a picnic, at times it's a garden, but a lot of the times it's a battle, a full-on ferocious, existential forensic war with the forces of darkness. Taking refuge for me in Dhamma is taking refuge in these 10 paramis, in the artistry of those paramis in relationship to ultimate realities. Anatta and artistry, self and selflessness, form and transcendence, concepts and reality, ideation and direct experience. There's no way to substitute the taste of food for the idea of tasting the food. There is no way to substitute the experience of love for the idea of love. That distinction, that Dhamma distinction of tangible, experiential, choice-making engagement. I want to create something. I engage the process until form is fulfilled based upon the vision of my creation. The creation of a sculpting of consciousness, a Buddha. It's so fascinating to me. Lesson 10, a defiant march of innovation, refusing fear and embodying freedom. Choosing the parami over the conditioning and the projection. Let me just reiterate these 10 paramis, and I encourage you, should you be interested, to make your own list of attributes. Yesterday I spoke about Sir Isaac Newton and the prism, the spectrum of colors through white light. The spectrum through consciousness, through the filter of Dhamma. The prism of Dhamma illuminates the rainbow of the paramis. Very fascinating to me. 1, dana, generosity. 2, sila, moral courage. 3, nekama, renunciation. 4, panya, wisdom, insight, a love of liberty and freedom. 5, virya, energy, vitality, stamina, engaged, determined resistance and resilience. 6, khanti, patience. We hear these words, I hear them, I'm just speaking to myself here today. Patience. And a burdensome attribute that must deal with things that because I can't get what I want when I want it, on the conditions and the terms that I want it. Patience, that more determined, courageous willingness to be still, to listen, to engage, to push, to dance, to tease out. That defiant march of innovation to me is guided by wisdom rooted in patience. The ability to stay with complexity for the art and the heart and the soul of Dhamma learning. And that to me, regardless of the outcome, this process of dealing with a diagnosis that we all have of a 6th mass extinction, coupled with the physicality of mortality and disease and aging and calamity and uncertainty, we have that capacity right there in the middle of it to dance with the parami, the virtue of what I'm learning. Patience. I wish to stay in proximity to complexity. I want to find the right word here. I want to take myself out of time. I want to go beyond time. I don't want to be reborn again in time. I want to hear the thunderous march of innovation and creativity. I must be patient with those ideals. Patience, the ability to stand, to sit, to walk, to pace, to struggle, to anoint, to cry, to weep, to scream, to outrage your deepest passions, because genocide and rape and murder and robbery and extinctions are insane. We're fighting an insane God, the God of destruction. It's not just embedded in my own mind. This field is fraught with delusions, and so patience for me is the heartbeat, the thunderous tribal war dance. I am here, man. I am not going away. I'm going to fight on this field. This is the good fight. This is my John Paul Jones moment, right? Yours too. I'd rather die here than retreat. The war has not even begun. I don't care what the diagnosis is. I refuse to participate in fear. I'm going to embody freedom, freedom, freedom to choose a parami. 6, khanti, patience. 7, satya, truthfulness. I've been giving truthfulness a go for a little bit of while now, a couple of months, maybe a couple of years. And I feel there's something in me when I move, when I talk, when I listen, that's more interesting to me than the word mindfulness. Truthfulness of presence. The ongoing sculpting, relaxation of authenticity. Authenticity informed by sila, moral courage, ethical intelligence. And you can see, I'm just stating what I've learned a little bit in my own journey. The paramis aren't sequential. They're colors on a palette of consciousness in form. And if we choose to take refuge and inhabit the artistry of the paramis, this is where I go in my own life right now, we will die. No one knows of the circumstances that we will encounter when I leave the house today. But what I do have is my choice, as long as I have the cognitive faculties to choose states of consciousness. And to me, those chosen states in my prism metaphor of the spectrum of consciousness that I want to inhabit, my rainbow, are these 10 factors of transformational awakening. 7, satya, truthfulness, authenticating the sound of our voice, authenticating the integrity, authenticating. What's another way of authenticating? The deep, unrelenting nuance of how we humanize the paramis. I mean, I've begun to see over time that a dimension of empathy is really radical sadness and despair and grief. I'm not very strong to support other because of my own sadness, and yet that sadness isn't vilified. I'm patient with it. More and more so to see it as the precursor, the developmental, evolutional energy of compassion and action. So when I talk about, for me, humanizing the paramis, humanizing the application of our Dharma, humanizing our artistry, some of the best artists really are so natural in their innovative, heartfelt jazz. Dharma jazz, the healing power of innovative, sonic, transformational paramis in musical cadence, intimately rooted in your own authenticity. Truthfulness. What does it mean to really be truthful? 8, adhitthana, determination. Determination, just keep on keeping on, right? Keep on pushing forward. Keep on sculpting the refusal to participate in the inner and the outer politics of fear, how we get swept up in conversations that vilify, that belittle, that demonize, that denigrate, that do all types of things to take us from the fidelity of a more radiant creative possibility. One of the things I love about the Buddha to be, the Bodhisattvic concept, is that it's rooted in this remarkable adventure of compassion, the caring for the future of life. I want to optimize my precious existence continuum for the optimal expression of manifesting love, compassion, patience, and the paramis in dynamic action. Could we imagine for a moment a world without the Dhamma? A world without colorization, the spectrum of transformational qualities of spiritual radiance. Imagine a world without generosity. It's unthinkable. Imagine a world without moral courage, without renunciation, wisdom, energy, truthfulness, determination, aditant, determination. Keep on pushing the sky away, because it could get very, very intense. It could get very, very dark, and it could get very, very light. By keeping the light inside, that to me is the power of the empowered state of mind, of the paramis, over projection, over profit, over privilege. And the final two, number 9 and number 10, is metta, loving kindness, and 10, upekkha, or equanimity. Generosity, ethical intelligence, renunciation, wisdom, insight, the love of freedom, energy, patience, determination, truthfulness, loving kindness, equanimity. Make things parami right. When I'm in doubt, I often tell myself, this I am not. This is not myself. Make the parami right. This I am not. This is not myself. Make the parami the priority of my presence and manifest that parami rightly. That gift tomorrow, I think I'll speak about walking on. I'm telling myself, to allow you to overhear how I think to myself, I'm telling myself to walk on starting tomorrow, after the 11th installment of this 11-part sharing of 11 life lessons in facing death. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I feel I have just about fulfilled my obligation to due diligence, to surgery, to non-surgery, to hospice, to end-of-life care, to friendships, to my will, to my 5 wishes, to my advance directive, to my alliances and family, to my daughter. I think I have pretty well said what I have had to say and what I've wanted to communicate to the elders, to my teachers who've passed away. And now I am walking on, and I am not sure what that will bring. No doubt I have in me lots of creative powers and energies. I've never felt more vital. But I must be wise and judicial and discerning about where to go, what to do, how to do it, and with whom to do it. A deep part of me wants to innovatively create in the sanctity of a secure environment, an artist Dhamma, low dosing, medium dosing, high dosing of Dhamma and psychedelic studio creation with creative savants bringing forth sonic frequencies of world Dharma albums, creating transformational frequencies like songs that liberate you to be true to you, not true to the teachings of something that I have inherited through my own practices. The artistry of freedom. Some time back, I left a list somewhere of 10 life lessons for the Dharma rebel. They're embedded somewhere deep in my heart: to be mindful, live in dignity and conscience, know your mind, know what you do. That's a teaching that my teacher Sayadaw U Pandita was so fond of saying. Know your mind as the most important task of your life. Know the considerations of how it manifests. Know what denigrates it. Know what elevates it. Invest in spectrum transformation of the paramis. Invest in dana, generosity, affluence of spirit. 4, to take refuge in the Dhamma. 5, learn the art of the question. 6, make each person you meet your ultimate object of reference. Location, context, transformation, the Ubuntufication of our existence. This is such a radical concept. Many of you know that the Buddha was walking with his friend Ananda, and Ananda said to the Buddha, "It seems to me, sir, that half the Dhamma life is noble friendship." And the Buddha was said to have said in this short sutta, says, "No, my friend Ananda, the entirety of the Dhamma life is in context with self and other, with illuminating the beauty of the Kalyanamitta spectrum. Relationships rooted, nurtured, embraced by satya, truthfulness. So rad to have a priority of ethics between us, where politeness and respect are embodied with the virtue, the gift and the virtue of delicate, beautifully composed, transformational truths that are intended to elevate the well-being, the loving kindness, the security, the freedom in another. Learning how to elevate and intelligently manifest higher degrees of love. Taking the death out of this story, rebirthing the paramis time and time again. Abide in and evolve your own uniqueness, your own unique gifts and talents. I've been telling that to my daughter, and I'm sure she's embodied them. Girl, embody your own unique talents, your shyness, your loneliness at times, your contraction, your fears, your flaws, and do all that you can to anoint them, to beautify them in your own unique way to create radiance from your mind and body in your life. Sing your broken dream. Let the world in on the inarticulate nature of how you construct pose and poetry and time and uncertainty. Throw your clothes against the wall. It's only your room. Create art on the terms of your integrity. Don't mimic a teaching because of its ism that appeals to your fear. Break the conformity to the idea of propaganda and dogma. There's so many ways that we can talk about the paramis. Abide in and evolve your own unique gifts and talents. On the courage. To never give up. It's such a cliche to say that, to never give up. What would it mean to give up? It'd mean to throw yourself headlong into Wellbutrin and Zoloft? Would it mean to throw yourself headlong into fentanyl and opioids? Would it mean to throw yourself headlong into sex addiction and profit and privilege and deception? What would it mean to just give up and just to basically throw in the towel? Would it mean euthanasia? Would it mean suicide? Would it mean alcoholism? Would it mean going back to cigarettes? What would it mean just to stick yourself in the sand and basically bury it there until you drowned? You can't give up. That's the problem with life. It demands that we wake up. It demands that we stand up. It demands that we keep our shoulders upright, our spine as best as possible, uncurved. It means that we defy gravity. It means that we fight disease, old age, disease, and propaganda. It means that we fight tyranny and totalitarianism and dictatorship. We don't give up. Is that really who we are? What does it mean to give up? I can't give up. What would it mean to give up? Stay in bed all day? Sometimes I don't do that. Sometimes I would love to do that. Sometimes I would love to just keep pushing this guy back into my heart and say, I want to be happy. I want to be met. I want some human decency, some basic salvation, basic human love. That's not giving up. Speak to yourself in ways that keep the courage alive to face the unspeakable, whatever it may be. The whole of the Dhamma life, the Buddha was said to Ananda in that, no, not half. The whole of the Dhamma life is a noble friendship. It's so easy to see half full. It's so easy, as my teacher once said to me, to see the stain on the handkerchief, and you miss the entirety of the handkerchief. So often in friendships we see flaws and foibles and weaknesses and inabilities. But what does it mean to straighten out these friendships and elevate their qualities, their radiance? It's not constantly friendly talk. It's honesty. It's beauty, it's poetry, it's playfulness, it's resourcefulness. How to stay interesting in our friendships, not just empower the cliche, the whole of the Dhamma life is noble friendship. That sounds great, a Hallmark card, but what does it mean to participate in our relationships in ways that are radically innovative, open-minded? It means learning to ask the question. This is something I learned from U Pandita as well, and from Daw San Suu Kyi, the art of the question. She would tell me back in the day in '95 when we first met, our revolution is of the spirit. It's a revolution of conscience. We don't use the fist, we don't use drones, we don't use the gun, we don't use nukes, we don't use bayonets, we don't use coercion and prison and rape and torture and assassination. We don't do as Xi Jinping and Ming Online do. We don't do as North Korea does. We don't do tyranny. We don't do it. It's so rad for someone to declare we don't do evil. We don't do violence. We may have our foibles, and I speak about them openly. I'm short-tempered, she told me. Haven't you noticed? Meaning to me. Be more intelligent. Be more direct. I could hear her screaming at me in her composure. Just say it like you feel it. Be pointed. Don't meander. The power of the question. So few people, no offense to you if you fit the category, so few people love to question. It's not interrogation. It's just this beautiful finesse of learning more about someone. I'm curious about you. Rather than the chemistry of I'm in love with you, I'm curious about discovering a little bit more of the edge of how you play and dance and fold and flaw and hide and preoccupy yourself with the artistry of your own mind and voice. How do you go about your art? When people ask me, what do you do mostly in the day and the night? I'm so self-obsessed, I dare admit it. But if I'm not going to do it now, what the fuck am I going to do? Do it after I die? I'm looking at innovative ways that interesting artists, to me, go about the business and the intelligence of creating their art. And I take their insights, try to apply them to myself, and bring my vocation, which is Dhamma for me. I am perhaps like you, a physical, existential kind of landscape of energy. And I'm doing what I can in that landscape that topography, that environment of energy, of sound, through the body, the mind, and the senses, the life of the yogi, to artistically create patterns and formations with color and light and sound and frequency and shape and cinema and words and tone and pauses and shapes and contractions and verbiage and all kinds of ways in which we speak and stay in silence and pause and go Broadway and go to the cellar of our doubt, to try to evoke beauty out of this strangeness that we're embedded. Theater as activism, music as revolution, cinema as transformational contexts where you sit and immerse in the light frequencies and the consciousness. Another thing that's come to my mind here, in going into point 10 of the Dhamma Rebel, go for your dream, visionary existence, mystical adventure. Go for your dream, visionary existence, mystical adventure. Why not play the highest stakes with this precious human life? As much as I rave on about rebirthing and transcendence and multidimensionality, the truth of it is I'm embodied with you here in this vortex of time and space. What will you do with the preciousness of a full breath? Why wait? What did you expect? A diagnosis from an instrument that basically tells you you're about to die? We're all dying. We're all birthing. What will you do with your dream? What will you do with the nobility of your relationships? How well do you ask questions that really take you down deep into your soul? How do you create your own self-therapy at the core level, not convenience therapy, but radical, innovative, waking therapy that releases you from your own restricted original love of art, the buried artist in you, the book in you, the song in you, the poem in you. How many people I meet that are just frustrated with time and space, and they're doing things that they've done for decades, but it no longer serves them in the role that they have. Healers, teachers, psychotherapists, psychiatrists, dancers, sex workers. Some of them do it so well that they're trapped in the repetitive, anticlimactic performance of the vocation. As artistic as it is, it's become corporate. And that questioning, am I living, now that I'm up close to mortality, just like you, nothing special, we're all in this together, obviously. But it's like every day is a new day. It's like, will I live in the habit pattern of my maze? Will I break out of the conformity of my home? Am I empowering false structures of my own claustrophobic cathedral? How do I give life to ism and deny the freedom of the experience? If I really let loose and decided to live my life without hesitation, who would I be? What would I do? Who she is that I have not yet met, or who is it that I've met that I'm not quite seen? Self-respect, self-doubt, self-questioning. Go for the dream, the art of the question, to know your mind, to be mindful, intelligent, live in dignity and conscience. Learn the art of the question, Aung San Suu Kyi told her people. Question authority, question tyranny. By what right do you have to take my home? These were the revolutionaries in Burma back in 95 and 96, and now, of course, today the same thing. By what right do you have to take my daughter? And the next thing you know, that mother's dead. It's a hunting game in Burma right now on activists, artists, filmmakers, savants, nonviolent, civil disobedient, mavericks, journalists, civilians who love freedom, the dream of children. It's a war on creativity. It's a war on the Dharma. It's a war on the spirit. Where are we? What are we doing? And so, coming to the end today, just a meandering through different thoughts and fields of thought. I think I've said so much over the years, especially these last 10 days. Can't say enough about basic Dhamma, the study of perception, how we imbue formations with conditioning, memory, and habitual emotions until we begin to see how that habitual infusion of conditioning in our perception leads to the repetition of the very things that we want to overcome. Stress, anxiety, hurt, betrayal, trauma. Yes, we keep recreating our own past and the future by not being mindful of the phenomena at the senses, the study of perception as Dhamma, and the decathexing of our attachment, our wrong views with the formation of ideation. Mahasi Sayadaw so spoke to me about context. Meditation and Dhamma deal simply with the context of one's interior. Meditation is the prism of transformational awakening to the lawfulness of how one manifests consciousness within their own mind and body. Meditation, just simply sit, look, feel, know, release, or create. I have to get this one out. So much of the Dhamma as I see it in my life is about extracting, on the one hand, greed, anger, and delusion, extracting false views, extracting delusional tendencies within form. And the other side of it is co-creative expansion. Extraction, co-creative expansion. Extraction, co-creative expansion. It's an asana. It's a type of alignment on a cognitive level, if you can just bear with me there, of extracting from the substratum, from the continuum, from perception in the moment, Dhamma literacy. Who among us has that special hand on their own mind to see, that's prejudice. Imagine if Joseph Biden would say, that's arrogance. That's pride. We're demanding of ourselves such refined qualities of self-leadership. And we hold our leaders in such low esteem that we criticize their idiocy. What about demanding of them higher radiance qualities of Dhamma leadership? And so, context, interior and self in context. The mastery, I dare even use the word the mastery, but the courage to engage the intimacy of complexity with self and other. Right there in learning the high art of employing parami over preference and privilege and domination or fear or judgment or blame or shame. Parami, P-A-R-A-M-I, cannot emphasize the beauty of that one Pali Buddhist concept that is trans-religious, that simply speaks to the attributes of your own desired rainbow. What are the qualities of consciousness? We all speak our respective languages. What is your Dhamma language? We talk about heart language. What is your Dhamma language? What are the one words on the color? That's red. That's love. That's blue. That's generosity. That's green. There's no ambiguity that is ethical intelligence. An individual who's able to anoint her or his own colors with choice-making presence, to be mindfully absorbed in the quality and to bring those qualities, those paramis, to the forefront of a presence in any given moment, that to me is a very high virtue. And that what decides, what I gather, the bodhisattva, an individual dedicated to what? Not Buddhahood. An individual dedicated to the development of the spectrum of the paramis, those 10 qualities, whatever they may be for you, in context to self and in context with self and other. How well do we inhabit the senses? How well do we inhabit the vocation of feeling, not just seeing, tasting, smelling, but truly anointing the experience with a felt textural intimacy? Come to the end here. It's a difficult topic, chasing illusions. Health is groovy, but you can't outrun death. Healing is acceptable, but if you vilify disease, you'll die in fear. I say to myself, Alan, take yourself out of time. Take yourself out of time. There's a freedom that only you can give yourself. Take yourself out of time. You don't want to be reborn in time. Take the time out of life. You do not want to participate in time. One of the most beautiful things about the psychedelic and about love and intimacy and meditation is that you have space. It opens up. It takes the gravity out of the moment, the hour, the day. And all of a sudden you find yourself in I wanted to say flow, but the simultaneity of openness that takes going from here to there out of the issue. It's so interesting to think about life as an event forward rather than an event in all directions simultaneously, including inward and outward, without centrality. Something larger than a kaleidoscope, more intimate than a hologram, and more deceptive than an illusion, and equally as intimate as the most important moment of our lives, giving birth to your daughter, giving birth to your son, getting married to your wife, shaving your head and becoming a nun, anointing your own consciousness with the insight of an awakened moment, a prayer to a friend who's passed away, a tear, a wink, a nod of gratitude, a heart broken from separation or betrayal. It's all so poignant, and within it all, keep so high this dream of taking the time. Yeah. I'm just thinking to myself here, I'm sorry. When I hear the word mortality, hospice, dying, euthanasia, I think about time, something ending. And all those conventions are so illusory. It's like walking at the beach for me, and I look out over the oceans and I see all the different colors, yet I know that those colors don't exist intrinsically in the water. They're refractions. Consciousness is this luminous, pure field of infinite non-centrality that can constrict and deny and tyrannize, or can elevate, give birth, and liberate. The dualities and the extremes of consciousness exist. Denigrate the environment and you suffer, and often others suffer too. Elevate the environment and you feel better and often profit, and others often benefit and profit too. Understanding both the topography of the inner environment, the physics of the inner environment, the attributes of the inner environment, just like the ecosystem, if we only knew how not to pollute, denigrate, violate, and how, if only we knew how to elevate, sanctify, beautify. Right there, those different dimensions are Dhamma, taking the time out of life. Rebirthing in the continuum towards a desired goal, taking death, taking conventions, taking ideation, taking the tyranny of culture out of consciousness. It's possible. I do see it through intimacy, through meditation, through the alchemy, if you will, of consciousness upon consciousness, the artistry on the emptiness. Without these 10 factors of consciousness, these 10 paramis, life would be a true wasteland. And in the absence of knowing them, to live a Dhamma, not knowing lawful transformation, intimate interaction, awakened mindful presence, self-responsibility. Let me end right there. Radical self-responsibility, to me, is the art and the soul and the heart of dignity, of conscience, and of freedom. May I encourage you. I've shared my lists to the best of my ability. Tomorrow will be my final talk for a while. I might give a talk or two in tribute to my beloved friends in Burma. But I'm going to take a little bit of time to myself, more and more, to think and to feel, to transition, and to see what I come up with in terms of a plan of action. Don't hold me accountable to anything. Please free me of all projections as much as possible. Right now I must be a little bit crazy and mad to, I think, be doing some of the things I'm doing, but it seems right and appropriate. Authenticity and the power of real. Empower your nuances, your subtleties, give life to detail. I can't say enough about style. I'm just thinking about what I need most for myself is refusing fear. It's so crazy to be alive in form, right? We all have people in our lives that have transitioned. It's a little bit crazy to reverse the process where now you become the one who's in transition and you're the one who holds yourself in grace. Without that self-responsibility of turning the Dhamma fully on your own heart and mind, take refuge in your own inner process. Take refuge in the sanctity of your intimacies. Take refuge in your friendships. And the final quality here today in this defiant march of innovation, refusing fear and embodying freedom. I'm just thinking, if today was the final day of life and intimacy and love and communion, and I took the if out of that, and I empowered conscious euthanasia And I'm there alchemizing these substances, and I'm thinking in my heart, this is the moment to transition. Well, my way of saying to you, primarily as a way of saying to me, I am taking myself very close to that edge this upcoming week, and I will have a conversation with God and see where I go in my integrity, in my awareness, in my own chosen expression of existence. So from my heart to yours, thank you for being in my life. Thank you for tuning in. God willing, see you tomorrow for the final talk in this series, Deadman Walking, Freedom Never Dies, 11 Life Lessons in Facing Death. And have a beautiful day. Thank you.